What can we do right now to improve ourselves in order to become a better prospect for marriage?
So many things. So many things.
إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to my very first podcast that I've ever hosted on this channel. So today I am very pleasured to be with a special guest who is my sister, Sumaya Al-Kholi, and I'm going to be asking her a few...
You don't have to give my full government name.
Well, they know my name, so they're going to know your name anyway.
Yeah, I guess.
So I'm just going to be asking her a few questions, and mashallah, Sumaya has a lot of wisdom and knowledge that she's going to be sharing with us today, inshallah. And these are questions that I actually wanted to answer to myself too. So we're all going to benefit, and I know you're going to definitely want to stick around for this interview. Okay, so let's start.
This is very high pressure.
There's no pressure. It's okay. Just conversation.
Okay.
So, mashallah, you're a very accomplished person. You do a lot of things between memorizing Quran and volunteering in the community, and being a wonderful sister in the household. Alhamdulillah, you're a very accomplished person. So, my first question is, how do you get so much done in between all this stuff, right? And how do you advise others to do the same? So, I've asked you this question so many times, and you never really give me a good answer. So that's why I'm asking the question. How would you advise everyday, normal lay people to do what you do? MashaAllah.
Oh man. Okay. So first of all, I don't know if I would consider myself to be an accomplished person. I feel like that's a little bit, I don't know, that seems like a title that doesn't fit, right? I feel like there's always more that can be accomplished. There's always more that you can do. And interestingly, in all of the areas that you sort of mentioned, I feel like I'm almost lacking. Like I need to be doing better, especially when it comes to being a sister. I don't think I'm a wonderful sister, but I'm glad that you think that. Yes, he definitely has asked me many times how do I do it all, I guess. And I don't know if I have an answer that people are actually going to want to hear. And I'm going to say it regardless. But what I mean is people usually have this sort of idea that there is like a specific formula, that there is a specific set of things that, productive people are always doing or whatnot. And truly, I think that the biggest thing for me and what allows me to get a lot done throughout my day is dua. So I know, like, again, it's a answer that people don't necessarily think of, but it's so simple. I truly do ask Allah to bless my time every single day, especially on the days where I feel like I have so much to do and I have no idea how I'm going to get it done. And I feel like that very, very often, actually. That's something that I want to sort of emphasize is, you're saying, oh, you get so much done in the day. But a lot of the time I wake up or I go to sleep thinking about my next day. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And that definitely causes some stress and it can cause some anxiety for me personally. But I always ask Allah to take care of it for me. And I always ask Him to bless my time. And truly, He always does. So after those days where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, I feel like I end those days off being so appreciative that Allah gave me the ability to do it. So don't overlook the power of dua. That would be my first answer. Again, everyone always wants sort of an action plan, and the answer is usually not the one that I gave, and it's not usually one that people are looking for, but it's something that's so easy and so accessible, and every single one of you can do that. Every single one of you can make dua, that Allah places barakah in your time and allows for you to get so much more done in a shorter amount of time than you would normally be able to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and if any of you listen to the podcast that I have with my best friend,
we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay. We talk about this all the time, and I've mentioned this so many times. So again, if you're a listener, it's going to be very redundant. I say this a lot, but truly, when you dedicate time for Allah throughout your day, your plate expands. And again, like I always talk about this, but it's because I really do swear by it, and I've seen it happen in my own life, where when you spend time with the Quran every single day, when you're making sure that you're doing your prayers on time, all of these things, it actually makes what you're able to handle so much more. And I'm going to attribute this back to my mom for a second. A few years ago, she sent me this Instagram reel about this one teenager who, mashallah, is a hafidh of the Quran. And they were asking him, they were like, how is it that you, have time to do all of this? You memorize the Quran. How do you have time to do that and to review and to keep up with your schoolwork, etc., etc.? And he basically looked at the camera or looked at these people that were interviewing him, and he was like, what do you mean? He was like, the Quran does not take away time from my day. It just makes my plate bigger. It makes what I'm able to handle more, and it increases my capacity. And ever since I've heard that, I feel like I've been trying my best to live by that, and I've seen it happen in my own life. Don't ever say that you don't have time in your day for Allah, right? If you're doing your prayers, your 5 prayers, that's incredible, but it's not enough, right? That's bare minimum. We're supposed to be praying, but what else are you doing? And of course, the salah has its own barakah. I'm not discounting that at all whatsoever, but the more time that you spend with Allah, even when you're super, super busy, the more time that you dedicate, right? The more consistent you are with your Quran or whatever it is. For example, truly what you're able to handle becomes so much more, and your capacity increases. So you're asking me this question, and I'm like, honestly, I don't know what I do that's different than what anyone else does. But what I do know is that I always ask Allah to help me, and He does. And I try my very best to stay consistent with a lot of my Islamic goals throughout the day so that I can have a more increased capacity. And there's no doubt that for sure, certain times of your life are going to be busier. You have to adapt, but never like let go. What I mean by that is, for example, right now we're in the summertime. Maybe a lot of you are like, oh great, I have, all this extra time now. I can dedicate it to doing more Quran or more prayers or learning more Islamic knowledge or whatever the case may be. When school starts again in a couple of months, don't just drop all of that. Maybe, yes, the amount that you do is going to have to be a little bit less, so adapt, but don't just drop the ball, right? Don't just stop, because truly, this is where your time becomes blessed, right? This is where your plate is actually going to expand and your capacity is going to expand. So that is what I attribute it to. I attribute it back to Allah, because truly without Him and without His help, I wouldn't be able to do any of the things that I do. Sometimes I even wonder, I'm like, how did I even get all of that done? But it really really is because of Allah's help. And when you're asking Allah for help, don't just ask Him and not do anything, right? You have to follow your dua with actual action that matches up with that dua. So if you're asking Allah to help, to help you and bless your time and increase your capacity, but really you're not interested in any of that, you're just making dua and you're not willing to actually put in the work, then yeah, it's not going to be fruitful. So you have to make sure that your intentions are right and that you're willing to act upon your dua. Make that dua, and truly don't ever say that you don't have time to spend time with the Quran or you don't have time to learn Islamic knowledge. We should be prioritizing those things over like our secular education. Because again, first of all, because that's what really matters at the end of the day, but also because that is what gives you so much barakah in your time. And I know I've been talking for a long time, but I also just want to say that because I mentioned secular education, I don't want anyone to take, to think that I'm basically saying like, oh, your school doesn't matter as long as you're, doing Islamic knowledge. That's not true at all. And again, if you listen to our podcast with, the podcast I have with my best friend, I always emphasize on the fact that you're a Muslim. And if you're a Muslim, you cannot be mediocre. You have to be excellent in everything that you do. You have to try at least. And that includes your secular education as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't want anyone to say, oh, Sumaya said, if all that matters is that I, just stick with my Islamic knowledge. Yes, that is very, very crucial and you should be pursuing that. but it's also equally as important, I think, for you to excel in your secular education. And anything that you do can become an act of worship as long as it's halal as well. So that's my very long answer.
Okay. So 3 things really stood out from what you just said. To me, at least, it's dua, Quran, and intention. So I want to focus on dua real quick because something just came to my head that I want to share. So when you're making dua to Allah to put blessing in your day, right? You're waking up in the morning and you're making dua, put blessing in my day. I want to get all this stuff done. You're going to go through your day wanting to do all that stuff. You're going to have the encouragement and motivation to do that stuff, right? So, you're already putting it in your mind when you wake up and you make that dua, right? Whether Allah accepts or not. Of course, He accepts your dua every time you make it. But whether He even is the one who is opening, obviously He's going to be opening all the pathways to you and everything, but you are the one who already put it in your heart, in your mind, that I want to go through this day, right? Like you said, you have to make dua and tie your camel, right? You put your trust in Allah and you do your part, right? So you're making dua to Allah knowing that He can and will put barakah in your day, but it's your mindset ultimately, right, that allows you to do that. Because if you don't have the right mindset, like you said, you can make dua all you want. You're not gonna accomplish anything.
Yeah, and I think also it's really important to note that when you do this, it shows you who you're relying upon, right? Like so many people go throughout their days and they're not relying upon God at all. We have all these people now that are atheist, agnostic, whatever, even some Muslims who don't understand who Allah is. And that's something that, we can always improve on. I'm not someone who can say that I fully know who Allah is. I should spend a lot more time learning about His names and His attributes than I do. But it's so important to know Allah enough to be able to understand that like you said, I'm waking up and I'm automatically relying on Him and I'm putting all of my sort of affairs in His hands. I think that that's actually such a crucial point. For so long, I feel like I was making dua, but I was so doubtful. And I wasn't necessarily doubtful in Allah, but I would make dua about something, but I truly would not believe that I am capable of doing it. And I think that really hindered my dua from being accepted, right? Like the Prophet ﷺ told us that you have to make dua when you are certain of Allah's answer, right? Make dua and be certain of Allah's answer. So that's something else too. It's not always like doubt in Allah. Like, alhamdulillah, I wasn't ever doubting in Allah's ability to give it to me. But I would make dua, but I was like, it's not going to happen. Like, I can't do it. So that's something else that you have to sort of incorporate. Wake up relying on Allah, knowing that He's the one who will open all the doors. He's the one that can make it happen for you. But also know that with Allah's help, I can do anything. So you also have to have that, like you said, that drive sort of to even make that dua and to have the intention, I fully plan on working towards achieving this dua as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the second thing that stood out to me was the Quran, right? You mentioned how, that teenager, and I've seen this video as well, who was talking about how the Quran makes his plate bigger. It doesn't take away from his plate. So I was thinking, logically, how is that? And so to me, it's that if you're reading the Quran and you're really reaping the rewards and the benefits and the wisdom that's in the Quran, how is it not going to make your plate bigger? How is it not going to make you more capable to handle all of the obstacles that are thrown your way throughout your day? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's not always even just about being able to make your plate bigger. I've seen that and I think it's very true, but I think it also it helps you mentally be able to go throughout your day. So you face certain stressors, you face certain hardships, we all do because that's life, but you're better equipped to respond. And I think that is where a lot of the Quranic blessings really come from as well. So yes, the Quran does expand your plate when you give time and attention to it, but at the same time, it also makes you stronger. It makes you better equipped to handle the little setbacks that happen throughout the day because, again, that's life. Allah says, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub." That, it is not only but by the remembrance of Allah that hearts find comfort. And so I think that's also a really big part of it, where it's not even just, the physical plate expands. That does happen. And like I said, I've seen that. But at the same time, I think it just helps you be able to handle things better instead of just being like unproductive, lazy, bored, whatever. It's not the qualities of a Muslim, and it's not the qualities of a person who is connecting with the Quran, right? And I think another thing too is just like, as a Muslim, we're supposed to be making use of our time. We're not supposed to be wasting our time and just letting the day pass us by and wasting the day. We're not supposed to be wasting our hours. And that's not to say that you can't have moments of enjoyment, right? That's not to say that you can't do things that are a little bit more mindless sometimes. No, you should, right? That helps sort of recalibrate us all the time. But we should be filling our day with very beneficial things, right? We should be spending time, doing our schoolwork, and then we should be spending time moving our body, eating healthy, going to the gym, or, spending time with your Quran, or, your ahadith, whatever. And that looks so different to each person because everyone has different interests when it comes to Islam, different things that they're passionate about, different things that they want to know more about. We should be spending time with our families. We shouldn't just be sitting there. And that's something that really bothers me because I see this all the time. People just sit there. Like, what are you doing? You're wasting your life away. And especially as people who, you're in high school, I'm in college, like these, and I say this all the time too, but these are our years. Like, if you're not building yourself up now, when are you going to do it? Right? Like, this is your prime time. So please don't just like not do anything with your day. If you find that you're bored, find something to do, right? Seriously, if you're like, I'm bored, okay, open your mushaf. Or listen to a lecture and take some notes, or start learning about something. I really, really, really hate it when people say, I'm just like bored the whole day. And I'm like, but you could be doing so much. So I don't know if I strayed away from the question or not.
No, that's perfectly on point, because the next thing I was going to ask, which was the third thing that I kind of took away from what you were saying, is intention. So for those of us who are very bogged down by work, for those parents who are working all day and maybe they don't have time to just sit there with the Quran, which, of course you said you can make time always, but a good thing to keep in mind is, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel, is intentions. As long as you have the right intention, you could be getting good deeds for anything you do. You're cooking the meal for the kids, you're getting good you have your intention to please Allah by providing for your children, by giving them a nice healthy meal and growing their bodies. You're going to get so much reward for that.
Right. So I think I can't speak on a parent's behalf because yes, I feel like I'm a busy person, but if you're a parent, you're so much busier than me. I'm not a parent, so I can't even begin to imagine sort of what that's like. But what I will say is I'll take the example of our own parents. And really anything that I speak about, especially when it comes to the Quran, I don't know if you're going to ask me questions about this later or not, but I really attribute it back to Mama especially. And I see how busy my mom is, right? I see that she has never once put her family on the back burner, even when she did go back to school a few years ago and now she works, right? She has never put us second. It's always us first. And her own responsibilities in terms of her work or her school when she was studying, that always comes second. So her household comes first, and so she's doing all of these things. She's able to balance all of these things, but she still is constantly reciting the Quran. And I feel like that's something that's very inspirational to me. When she's in the car, driving to go pick up someone, going to go get groceries, doing whatever, she's reciting Quran. When she's in the kitchen, she's making us our dinner, she's reciting Quran. And then, you think about my dad, Baba, like he is always listening to Yasser Fadi. There's always Yasser Fadi playing in the house. No matter what he's doing, he's just walking around, he's brushing his teeth, whatever, it doesn't matter. He's always playing something. And I feel like even then, again, I cannot speak on how busy a parent is because I don't have that experience, and I'm not going to tell a parent what to do because it's so different. But from seeing our own parents, I think it's possible. Yeah. And like you said, when it comes to the intentions, anything that you do, even your school studying can become an act of worship if you're like, Ya Allah, I am doing this because you you said that you love the people who seek knowledge, because the people who seek knowledge, you facilitate their path to Jannah for them. Because I want to study this so I can help other people, whatever the case may be, whatever your field of study is. So anything really can become an act of worship. And I think that we just have to be more conscious of that, essentially.
Yeah. So we're talking about all this, intentions and how you get all this stuff done throughout our day. And so one of the things that, mashallah, as an overachieving person that you do, like we mentioned it already, but I'll just reiterate it. You have your podcast called Nurain, the Two Lights podcast, which she does with Asil, her best friend. And so I just wanted to ask you, as somebody who has a presence on social media, what has your experience been like? And I have a couple of sub-questions to kind of get you going. So first of all, what are some pros and cons of having a presence on social media and posting on social media? And then what are some things to be wary of when posting on social media? So this question actually came up to me because, I have only been doing this for about half a year. And this is just something that's constantly in the back of my head, right? Like the pros and cons, what should I be conscious of? I don't want to go down this bad route that we see so many people going down where they're so obsessed with it and their intentions become skewed. And next thing you know, they're broadcasting their sins to everybody. So just your experience and your opinions on that.
So I want to start off by saying that we don't really have a social media presence. We do have our podcast, Nurain, the Two Lights podcast. You can listen to it on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts.
Just a quick shameless
plug. We don't have a social media presence anymore. We did, and we do have our account on social media. We just never post on it at all whatsoever. We actually have an entire episode about this. Mm-hmm. It's called Why We Don't Post Anymore. It's a little bit of a clickbaity title, but we were referring to our social media accounts. So I feel like it's a little bit difficult for me to answer this question because we really don't have a social media presence. What Asid and I do is we record and we upload to Spotify and to Apple Podcasts, and that's it. And I feel like, honestly, that has helped us sort of navigate this whole podcasting world in a better way. And what I mean by that is we did have a period of time where we were really conscious about social media and we wanted to put out content and we wanted to make sure that we got our names out there and all that stuff. Really, we wanted people to listen to our podcast. But as we talk about in that episode that I mentioned, we quickly realized that, first of all, this whole content creator life is not for us. And we also realized that we were sort of quickly going down a rabbit hole that is very easy to get stuck in. So, and again, we talk all about this on that episode, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about this. But it just became, I guess it got to a point where it started to affect us. And we started to feel like, okay, what are we actually recording our podcast episodes for? Is it about the numbers? Is it about how many people listen? Is it about the likes and the comments and the interaction that we're getting on social media? Or is it really just about being two people, two best friends who want to, first of all, better themselves and help better each other? And we have our podcast that's called the Two Lights Podcast Nurain because, and we say this, a lot too, but we want to be the two lights that sort of inspire each other and help each other grow, but also the two lights that help everyone else that listens grow and inspire those people and empower those people. So I think that when we started to focus a lot on the social media, we started to lose some of that a little bit, or it became a little bit more of just a focus on putting out the content and why aren't we getting that much interaction and why isn't it doing as well as we wanted to. So we stopped, and that was probably the best decision that we made for the podcast. I want to put it out there, we're not famous in any way. Our podcast is not popular, but truly it's something that both Asid and I really, really enjoy doing, and we have improved so tremendously because of it. And that's why we do the podcast. I mean, seriously. And you can even ask Asid, she will tell you, I will tell you that having this podcast has helped us grow because it's helped us seek more knowledge, because you can't come and talk on a podcast and not know anything, right? Yeah. So it's helped us seek more knowledge. It's helped us learn how to convey that kind of knowledge. And it's also helped us hold ourselves accountable, right? Because you say things, and if you say them, then you have to hold yourself accountable for them. And honestly, like, Mama reminded me of this as well. She was like, Sumaya, like, you're going to benefit the people that you're meant to benefit. Doesn't matter if you have all these followers or all these likes or all these comments and interaction and fame, right? That shouldn't be the goal. Like, even if you benefit one person, that's more than enough. So it's something where it's like, now, alhamdulillah, like, I think we really just do it because we really enjoy doing it. It's something that I think it was a really beautiful sort of thing that came out of our friendship. And I'm not going to take credit for it. It was Asil's idea. So I'm not going to take credit for it. She asked me, and I'm honored to be there with her. But yeah, so I would say to answer your question, that one of the biggest things is that you have to make sure that you don't get caught up in the numbers. That if you're going to start posting on social media and stuff, that's fine, but don't let it get to you where it's like, if a video doesn't do well, or if an episode doesn't do well, or if something isn't, or you're looking at all these other people and you're like, how come they get so many views and so many, likes, and they're so, they have all this popularity and everyone listens to them. Don't get bogged down by that. And I think, I don't want to say it's inevitable, but it's a feeling that I would say most people on social media have dealt with at some point in time. So I think if you do start to feel that way, it's important to kind of take a step back and try to remind yourself, like, why am I doing this? Because if your intentions have shifted, you want to make sure you bring them back. So like, all this stuff, it's really nice to do, and it's really nice to have. But at the end of the day, like, Allah's not going to ask you how many followers you had or how many subscribers or, the superficial numbers. It's going to be about, well, who did you really touch, right? And so I think that that's the most important thing to focus on. But yeah, we don't have a social media presence, so it's a little bit difficult to answer this question.
Let me throw a little curveball at you.
Oh no.
So imagine there's a person, and I'm sure there's tons of people like this out there. I could even include myself maybe in this, who their passion is posting things on social media, right? And their passion is also their faith. And so they want to post things on social media that help people and educate people. So would you say they have a two-sided intention by wanting to put themselves out there and wanting to get those numbers, like you were saying, right? They want to get those numbers so they can impact more people, so they can educate more people, and so this can become a livelihood for themselves. Is it okay to have a two-sided intention like that? This is something I've always thought about, so just want to hear your opinion on it.
So I'm not going to give like a scholarly opinion, so just anyone who don't take this as like a fatwa at all whatsoever. I don't think there's a problem with that. And I feel like that's where sort of what we were trying to do with our podcast. It's like, we want to get out there so that we can help people.
Yeah.
But I think where it becomes an issue is when you get like upset when you're not there. Like when you get a little bit upset that you're not getting that attention, or when you get upset that your video is not doing well, or you're like, how come these people get to do, they get to have all these followers and I don't. I think when it starts to become something that's a little bit obsessive and something that's like only for the sake of the viewers, then I think that's where maybe you need to kind of reevaluate your intentions. So I would say that as long as you're not hyper focused on the numbers, I think that it's okay to have a passion for this technology stuff and like getting stuff out there and making these cool videos and that people can benefit from, and to have a passion for your faith and wanting to help people. That's incredible. And we know that so many people are helped this way in this day and age, right? So many people really they receive their inspiration from influencers online, and may Allah reward those people. But I think that it's just really, really important to note that the second that it starts to feel like something upsetting, or you're like, why isn't it, happening for me? Why am I not getting all these subscribers or all these viewers? And you start to really hyperfixate on the numbers. I think that's where you have to reevaluate and say, okay, is this for the numbers or is it for the benefit? Because if your goal is to benefit people, the numbers don't really matter. And the numbers are nice, right? Everyone thinks like it's great to have an episode, like for example, for us, it's really nice to have an episode that does well, that people listen to a little bit more than our other episodes. It's really nice, I'm sure, to see that you get views on your YouTube videos and certain things like that. So yeah, the numbers are there and they do make us excited when we see them, but it's so easy to get caught up in the numbers.
Yeah.
And I think that if that's what's happening, then there is sort of a little pause that needs to happen so you can like take that time to reevaluate. And so I think that also another thing is like, it depends on like what content you're putting out. So for example, if you're starting to put out content or put out episodes because that's what the people want and not necessarily what you want to put out, I think that's another
or what's
sign.
Best for your faith, or what's accurate.
Exactly. So I think that it's okay to have both passions and to really want to get that exposure so that you can help people. But like my mom said, you're going to help the people that are meant to be helped by you. You're going to benefit the people that Allah intends for you to benefit. And even if that's just like 100 people versus a million, it's enough, right? So
I just want to focus on that real quick, because I think if there's anybody out there struggling with this whole intention thing with social media, I think this is really what can reel back your intention. Because, you know, when you think about maybe only 50 people watch my video, right? But if every single one of those 50 people actually took something away and benefited from that, you're getting so much reward, right? Like I see this sometimes when just the other day, I posted a video and a non-Muslim was commenting, they're like, how can I find out more about this work? And you know, that made me so happy. And it's like, that makes you think, this is why I'm doing this. You know, it really brings back your intention and makes you realize that this is why I'm doing. I don't care if I get 100, 1,000, a million views. This one person might come to Islam because of this random video that I posted online, right? So if anybody out there is struggling, which I'm sure there's a ton of people, we all, you know, it happens. We all struggle with it. It's not something bad, but you just have to be conscious of it. If you're struggling with that, then definitely my mom's advice, like she's saying, think about who you're impacting. It's a game changer. It really is.
And I want to say something else too, is like, I think recently in my life, I've been realizing how significant and how beautiful it is when Allah enables you to help someone. Because like he said, it might just be one person that comes and asks for your help. Or it might be that you're given the opportunity to teach people a certain thing. And when it comes to Islam, it's not just that person or those people that you're impacting. And I think about this a lot when it comes to like teaching Quran, for example. Alhamdulillah, like I've been blessed with the opportunity to teach Quran. And when you think about that, it's like, yes, you're helping those people, but you're also helping them be able to teach their children, and then their children be able to teach their children. And when you think about that, you're like, the reward is so endless. So even if it's just a couple of people that are sincerely asking for your help and you're able to help them, that's a huge blessing, because you're not just impacting them, but you're potentially enabling them to teach that to their children, to give that to their children. And so it's a chain. So I think that something else is like, you all have something that you can help other people with. We all have something that we can teach to other people. And in order to teach, you have to be someone who's willing to learn. But teaching, I think, is one of the best things that you can do in whatever capacity it is. It's one of the best things that you can do, because truly teaching teaches you. Teaching benefits you more than you benefit the people that you're teaching. And that's something that I really stand by and live by now, because I've learned so much from teaching. It's like, yeah, you're the one that's in this teacher position, but that the people that you're working with, the people that you're teaching, are actually helping you more than you're helping them. So recognize that every single person, every single one of you does have something that is worth teaching, right? You do have an ability. You just kind of have to find it. And when you do, like, help anyone who needs the help, because you never know what kind of a cascade or domino effect that's going to have in the future. Again, even if you teach, for example, let's say you teach one person a dua, right? They ask you, what is this dua? And you teach it to them, one person, they say it for the rest of their life. or they say it for the rest of their life and they pass it down to their kids and their kids pass it down to their kids, and it just keeps going just because of that one thing. Maybe it took you 2 seconds, right? But now this person does it for the rest of their lives, and they pass it down. So it's really beneficial, I think, to recognize that if you have that ability, if Allah has enabled you and blessed you with that, which everyone does have something, you should be willing to sort of teach it to others.
And that's where the intentions come to play, right? Because if you're teaching them just out of, okay, I'm just going to tell them whatever they're asking me, right? Or I'm putting out this video just because I want to get views, but it ends up getting millions of views and you're not getting any reward for it because your intentions weren't right. So that's where the intentions come into play. Okay, so next question. So we're talking about social media, and obviously it impacts our health in many ways, mentally, even physically, right? You're sitting on your phone all day. So food is a commonly overlooked aspect of our health. And we're laughing because she is a kinesiology major, right?
I'm an exercise science major.
And food, and she's been, I wouldn't say obsessed, but probably obsessed over healthy food for a very long time. And that comes from our mom. She's a health coach, right? And alhamdulillah, we're both, I think we're very grateful for our mother teaching us to be healthy with our food and our lifestyle. So anyway, just the question that I'm going to ask you is, as someone who's studying nutrition, why do you think it's important for us to live healthy lifestyles as Muslims?
He's giving me my little chance to shine.
I mean, yeah, I'm just go for it.
So first of all, I just want to say that I don't think I'm obsessed with healthy food. I feel like that can come off in a very negative connotation, actually. And maybe I see it this way because I'm a girl, but you have to understand that eating disorder culture is so prevalent. And when it comes to obsessing over food, I think that's a very unhealthy thing, actually. Okay. So that's the first thing I want to establish. I'm not obsessed with the idea of healthy eating, but I have recently been very passionate about this topic. Second thing, yes, I'm an exercise science major. I'm not studying nutrition yet, but inshallah, that's the end goal, to go into school, like, graduate school for dietetics. Alhamdulillah, because of who my mom is, and again, she's a functional nutrition health coach. Throughout her schooling as well, she always sort of would share with me the knowledge that she gained and all the really cool stuff that she learned. And through my experiences interning and reading certain books and like listening to certain podcasts, which I don't listen to too many nutrition podcasts, but here and there I've heard, certain episodes, people that I follow on Instagram. And yeah, from my own experiences with my own health journey right now, I would say that I've learned the importance of healthy eating specifically. And it's something that I, inshallah, want to work towards, being able to have this knowledge so that I can share it with the world and with people who are really struggling. So when it comes to why is it important for us to live healthy lifestyles as Muslims, I'm actually reading this book right now that's called The Quranic Prescription. It's written by a holistic medical doctor, actually, who is Muslim. Her name is Dr. Madiha Saeed, I believe. And she basically wrote this entire book about why it's important to live a healthy lifestyle as a Muslim, as it is mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah, actually. So she's deriving her ayat from the Quran, she's deriving a hadith from the tradition of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and she's tying it into medicine. She's a medical doctor, right? So she has this really, honestly, it's really unique and it's really beautiful because here's the thing. So many people overlook this aspect of their faith, and they'll tell you that eating healthy and exercising is not an act of worship, or that it's not a command. I think so many people kind of disregard that because they're like, the commands are salah and zakah and, my siyam and Ramadan and hajj. And yes, those are commands and those are obligations and we need to be doing those things. But Allah also commands us several times in the Quran to eat from that which is pure, right? To eat from that which is halal and tayyib. It's a command that comes up many times in the Quran, actually. And I didn't realize how much it came up in the Quran until I was reading, that book, right? Until I was reading those sections in the book. So Allah tells us in the Quran several times to eat from that which is halal and tayyib. And the verse that I'm thinking of off the top of my head here is in Surah Al-Baqarah. And actually, I was talking about this verse on the podcast earlier this week, and I completely forgot the verse, so we're going to try to remember it. But Allah says, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ كُلُوا مِمَّا فِي الْأَرْضِ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ إِنَّهُ لَكُمْ عَدُوٌّ مُبِينٌ. So Allah says, He gives a command to all people to eat from that which is halal and tayyib. And what's interesting is He says, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. And this connection here is kind of like, why would Allah put the shaitan, like what? Like what is the connection? But what Dr. Madiha was basically explaining in her book is all of us who are constantly pumping our bodies with excess sugar and excess food in general, like we overconsume so much, or, just pumping our bodies with GMOs and artificial ingredients and preservatives and all these things, that's not halal and tayyib. That's actually you following your desires. And we know this, food is addicting. The wrong type of food is addicting. Like you eat a piece of cake and you're like, I want the whole cake, right? Or, you eat a certain something that has a bunch of sugar in it and you just want sugar the rest of the day. It's addictive. We're not supposed to be addicted to food. Food is fuel and we should be treating it as such. Food is also a pillar of your health and a pillar of preventing against diseases. The reason why so many people are sick is because of the way that they eat. We can reduce our chances and our risk for chronic diseases and infections, which, by the way, chronic diseases are chronic, meaning that for a lot of them, they don't ever get 100% cured. Yes, you can sort of work to put the disease in remission or to sort of curb it and deal with the symptoms so you're not feeling horrible all the time. But for many people with chronic diseases, it doesn't just reverse, right? Some people, they do reverse their chronic conditions, but it's not something that is always doable. So we have to understand that the power is in our hands. We have to eat from that which is halal and tayyib, not because I'm telling you to, not because random dietitians are telling you to, not because there's a health craze and a health trend on social media, but because this is a body that Allah has given you as an amana, as a trust, right? Allah has trusted you with this body and He's also commanded you. It's a command. It's not like a suggestion. It's a command to eat from that which is halal and tayyib. Halal, everyone knows the definition, right? Permissible. Tayyib is that which is pure, that which is not going to harm you, essentially. And unfortunately, especially in America where we live, the foods that you find at the grocery store that are on the shelves, the convenience foods, even foods that you might think are healthy, like Diet Coke, for example, those kinds of things are literally tearing your body to pieces from the inside. And they are causing so much inflammation in your body. And when you keep eating that way, and you keep eating that way, and you keep eating that way, it just makes it worse and worse and worse. So Allah says, do not follow the footsteps of Satan, because when we are eating that way, when we're destroying the bodies that Allah gave us as an amana, we're following our desires. And we know that we're not supposed to follow our desires as Muslims, right? That's a big pillar of our faith, is to actually curb our desires and to sort of overcome our desires for what Allah has commanded, right? So many times in the Quran, Allah is asking this question of, have you not seen the ones who take their desires as their God, right? We're not supposed to worship our desires. Just because you want something doesn't mean you have to have it. And I really want to clarify again, because there is a big eating disorder culture. I'm not saying that, you can't eat things and you can't enjoy food and you can never have a piece of sugar in your life and all these things. I'm not telling you to restrict your food. I'm not telling you to diet in terms of diet culture. I'm not telling you to restrict your calories and to never eat. And, I don't want anyone to take that away from what I'm saying, truly, because that's not the intention behind it. But what I am saying is there's a way to fuel our bodies that are so different from the way that we're doing it, right? Because we are Muslims, because Allah has given us this body to take care of, we have a responsibility to take care of this body and to not pump it with chemicals, right? So I think it's really, really important to first of all acknowledge the fact that this is a command from Allah. There's a hadith as well of the Prophet ﷺ that says that the most overfilled vessel is the stomach, right? That people overfill their stomachs more than they overfill anything else. And everyone knows, or at least it's very commonly narrated, that, you're supposed to have 1/3 for food, 1/3 for water, 1/3 for air, meaning that even when you are eating, you're not like shoving food down your throat. You're not over consuming, right? Eat, but be able to breathe after you eat. And we all know the feeling of like you eat too much and you feel like you can't move. Like, we're not supposed to be eating that way. We're not supposed to be experiencing like food comas, right? Again, you can enjoy the food that you're eating, and food is also something that's social, right? We come together, we eat together, but at the end of the day, make sure that what you're eating is not fueling disease, right? Because what inflammation is, you can think of it as like a fire inside of your body, right? Inflammation is a fire inside of your body. Your immune system is supposed to sort of tame that fire, and we need inflammation in our bodies, because when we get sick, an inflammatory response is what allows us to heal. When you get a cut, for example, an inflammatory response is what allows that cut to be, yani subhanAllah, you always see like, you cut something open and then it just, it seals back up. That you need inflammation to do that. But the problem is your inflammatory response is supposed to be temporary. When it does what it needs to do, it's supposed to stop. But when we keep feeding ourselves all these foods and we don't exercise and our mental health is really bad and we don't sleep and we're spending too much time on our phones and not enough time outside, your inflammatory response is always on. So your fire is just blazing and blazing and blazing and blazing. And that's not healthy. And that's what leads to all the problems that we see actually today. That's what leads to all these chronic conditions, these autoimmune diseases, all of these things, diabetes, heart disease is the #1 cause of death, followed by cancer. So a lot of these things can be avoided if we just fueled our bodies with what is halal and tayyib, like Allah essentially commanded us to do. And I don't want to like keep talking about this because I don't want to get like too sciencey and everyone's like, what is she talking about? But essentially, it's important to fuel your body with the foods that are not harming it, right? If you're doing that, if you're eating all these foods that are just, there's no nutritious quality in them, then you're going to be harming the amana that Allah gave you. Like, imagine if someone is like, I'm traveling and I'm going to give you this thing, take care of it until I come back, and you just destroy it. That's what essentially we're doing when we just keep pumping our bodies with literally like fake food. Like fake food. Like why are we eating stuff that can sit on a shelf for like a year? You know what I mean? It's not healthy. Again, not because of like weight or calories or anything, simply because you don't want to put yourself in a disease. And that's what we're doing. We're putting ourselves in disease. So I think that's the reason why we have to sort of live these healthy lifestyles as Muslims. And also when it comes to the exercise piece, I can't deny that, being my exercise science major self, the Prophet ﷺ said that the strong mu'min, right, is better than the weak mu'min, or was it Muslim? I can't remember what the exact Arabic wording is. And he said, yes, there's khayr in all of them, but the strong believer is better than the weak believer. So we should move our bodies, again, because Allah made us to move. He didn't make us to sit on a couch and watch TV all day or to be on our phones all day long. He made us to, take care of ourselves. Part of that is regular exercise, whatever that looks like for you. People enjoy different things, but you want to be moving your body, taking care of yourself because Allah told you to, not because diet culture told you to, essentially.
Yes, subhanAllah. I know a lot of Muslims are probably like, thrown off, like, why is this guy talking about health and food on.
And that's the hard part of even going into a field like this is so many people don't take you seriously.
Yeah.
Or they're just like pseudoscience. Like, you're telling me that food can be medicine? Pseudoscience. I don't believe it. It can be difficult in that regard as well. Having to explain, like, the people's blank stares when I tell them I'm studying exercise science is like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be a PE teacher? And I'm like, no, I hated PE. I'm not doing that. I promise.
No, but yeah, it's interesting that I never thought about this verse that you brought up, that Allah is correlating not eating what's halal and tayyib, right, what's permissible and good and wholesome. He's correlating that to following shaitan. Right. So, if there's any Muslims out there, like we said, that aren't taking this seriously, listen up, because this is a command. Like she said in the Quran, it says kulu, right? Kulu means eat. Like you should eat, right?
The command form. Right?
It's in the command form, right? It's not saying, try to eat. No, this is saying eat. This is what you should be eating as a Muslim human being, right? This is how you take care of your body. So Yeah, that's very interesting. I never thought about that.
And also, when you take care of yourself, you're better able to worship, right? You think about people who are sick and haram, they can't really move. You know, you think about even like our own grandparents
Yeah.
who can't, you know, they can't make sujood, or they can't go in certain positions in prayer because they have all these problems that are related to, you know, having a high weight, having like arthritis, osteoporosis, because of a lack of healthy foods, because of pumping your body with medicine, because of lack of movement. When you're healthy, you're stronger, and you're stronger for a longer period of time, and you're able to worship better. I mean, you think about, you know, if you're sick, you can't stand up for that long in Salah, or you can't, and it's not to say that, you know, if you're sick, you can't worship, but it's just that your quality of worship can be so much better if you are internally healthy. And I want to just put a disclaimer out there too. Regardless of how you eat, or, you know, how you take care of yourself or don't take care of yourself, we can't deny Allah's qadr, right? If Allah's will is for you to get sick with something, that's going to happen regardless. But that piece also should not discourage us and be like, well, whatever Allah has planned, right? I'll eat this way. If He wants me to get sick, I'll get sick, whatever. No, it's about do your part. And if Allah still wants you to get sick, like, no one can change Allah's qadr, but you have to do your part as well in helping prevent that. Food is preventative. And when we think about healthcare, we should be thinking about healthcare in a preventative way, not, oh my God, I'm sick and I have all these diseases, and let me just take all the medications for them. Because what medicine does, it just puts a Band-Aid. You know, imagine having a gun wound and you just put a Band-Aid on top of it. It doesn't do anything. So you want to make sure you're preventing, and that you're actually treating the root cause, rather than just like sticking a medicine Band-Aid over it, and that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to get to the next question in a second. My MacBook is about to die, so I'm going to plug it in real quick. So we'll be right back. Okay, thank you guys for your patience. So the next question is, and it's related to exactly what you were just talking about. This is kind of more personal question that I have. So many people that I know personally, they'll say that just because they're skinny, or just because they have like clear skin, right, they don't have to eat healthy. So how would you respond to those people? Because honestly, it makes me really angry when someone's like, "Oh yeah, I can eat that. I don't get fat. I can just I'm just gonna eat the whole cake. I don't get fat." You know, and it's just like, as you know, somebody who is skinny myself, I still, you know, try to eat it, have a healthier lifestyle, because I know how it makes me feel, and I know how that's, you know, impeding on my performance just as a person. So how would you respond to those people who are like, you know, I'm just gonna eat whatever I want. I don't really get any. I don't see any consequences.
Right.
How would you respond?
So again, diet culture and the society that we live in is so focused on the superficial. People will tell you to diet because you look a certain way, not because your health is in a certain state. So, and this is, again, I'm coming from a female perspective. This happens a lot for women as well, where women themselves feel like they constantly have to be on a diet because they're not skinny enough. They don't look like the Victoria's Secret models. They don't look like, you know, the people on social media. We're focusing on the wrong thing. If you're saying like, oh, I'm skinny, I don't gain weight, I can eat whatever I want, it's because you're focused on what's on the outside. And some people are like that. Some people don't gain weight very easily. Some people, they struggle to gain weight. Some people are the opposite. We've been created differently. We have different body types. We have different body shapes. Our metabolisms are all different. You know, me and you could eat exactly the same. Well, I mean, we're different genders. But I'm saying, like, if, for example, if you and a guy were to eat the exact same way, maybe you guys are the exact same height.
Yeah.
You ate the exact same way, worked out the exact same way, you still would not look the same. And it would be the same thing for me and another girl, same height, right? We eat the exact same thing, the exact same portion, work out the exact same way. We still would not look the same because our bodies internally are very different. So diet culture and the society at large and social media has placed an immense focus on the wrong thing. Again, you're not supposed to be eating healthy and exercising to look a certain way. If that is your goal, then you really need to shift your intention dramatically. You should be eating nutritious foods and exercising regularly, moving your body, like you said, because of the way it makes you feel, and because of the fact that you can't see disease all the time. Or you see it when it's too late. You see it when it's already happened. So just because you can't see something happening inside of your body doesn't, or, you know, on the outside, right? You're like, I'm not gaining weight physically. The number on the scale is not changing. Doesn't mean that internally there isn't this fire that's blazing and begging you to stop. And for some people, yeah, it doesn't really manifest until maybe many years later. But again, we're focused on the wrong things. Don't focus on the outside. It doesn't matter what you look like on the outside, right? Don't exercise and eat well to look a certain way on the outside. Rather, like I just spent, however many minutes talking about, you should be doing those things because Allah commanded you to, because Allah gave you this body as an amana, and you should take care of it and return it back to Him in the way that He gave it to you. Just like, again, with that example, someone gives you something, you want to give it back to them in the same way that they gave it to you, if you were entrusted with something. So if you're thinking, oh, outwardly I look perfectly fine, I don't gain weight, I don't break out from foods, whatever, great. Honestly, that's good for you. But at the same time, that doesn't mean skinny does not equal healthy. Let's just put it that way. Skinny does not equal healthy. I grew up with so many people who, very, very thin people. Again, that's just the way they were created. Allah made them that way. Very, very thin. The way they ate was like garbage. Like, it's not even real food anymore. You know what I mean? So you can be the skinniest person and eat so bad. Internally, there's going to be problems. It's going to catch up to you eventually. So again, let's not correlate skinny with healthy. It's two very different things. It's two very, very different things. And before we close off of, this sort of topic, I just want to say again, I'm not someone you should be taking nutrition advice from yet. I don't have any, degree, certifications, anything like that. I don't want anyone to take what I say and just run with it. But also I try not to give any specific dietary advice because I can't do that yet. But in general, Allah did command us to eat well, to eat from that which is halal and tayyib, and to not follow the footsteps of shaitan, meaning let's not eat all of those fake processed, ultra processed foods that contain ingredients that you can't even pronounce. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Yeah, but don't discount yourself either, because she is very well versed in this stuff.
Yes, also you can't, again, I don't have the qualifications.
Not yet, but you're working on it. And she's definitely a student of knowledge in this subject and in many subjects. So don't just throw yourself away, MashaAllah. Okay. Anyway, so we're moving on to a completely different topic now. This is kind of a fun question that I kind of came up with because I was a little bit curious. So, as Muslim men, it's not obvious that we're Muslim when we go out in public, right? Me and my cousin were actually just talking about this, which is what inspired my question. However, it's very easy to pick out a hijabi as Muslim when you see her, right, on the street, right? We go out, oh, look, it's a hijabi, Muslim, right? Mm-hmm. So as a hijabi woman yourself, is there any way you're able to pick out a Muslim man amongst the crowd? I thought it was a fun question. I just want to see maybe if you could.
If I didn't know someone was Muslim already, then probably not. Can I tell that someone is Arab? Yes. A lot of the time. Yeah. I feel like Arab men have a very certain look, especially if they look like typical Arab guys. Mm-hmm. I feel like you don't look like a typical Arab guy. Yeah. You can kind of pass, I
guess. Yeah.
So I don't think there's any way for me to be able to distinguish a man and just know that he's Muslim. Can I maybe make some guesses about his ethnicity or his race and then be like, oh, maybe he's Muslim? Yes. But what I will say that's really beautiful about wearing the hijab is that people recognize you. So I've been in many situations where, I'm out and a guy comes up to me and says salam to me. And so I'm like, oh, wa alaikum assalam. In that case, I guess that this person is Muslim. But I don't think there's any way to really tell that, a guy is Muslim just by looking at him. You can guess, and I think, sometimes, especially when you see an Arab guy, you're like, okay, maybe he's Muslim, maybe he's not. But, I don't think there's any way to know unless he's with a hijabi person. And then, obviously, I think that's a telltale sign. But, no, I don't think there's any way.
See, the reason why I was asking this is because I think that as Muslim men, we definitely need to step up our game. And so, I was just curious because as Muslims, we should have a demeanor about us that spikes people's curiosity. Why is he being so kind? Why is he being so generous? Why is he walking with such confidence in who he is? Mm-hmm. And so this is kind of why I asked this question, because I wanted to lead into this subject, which is, I think that Muslim men need to maybe step up their game a little bit to where they have this aura, they have this aura around them, right? Because I don't think Muslim men, especially, and I'm focusing on men because I am a man, and this is something that I'm passionate about. Muslim men have lost their izzah, right? In Arabic, izzah means like their their greatness and their might. Exactly, they've lost that. We're supposed to be mighty people, not in just our muscles and our manpower. No, not of that, but in our character and in how we behave around people. That's where our izzah should come from, and that's why I think that the Muslim world is crumbling these days.
I guess I want to take a different perspective on this, because you're saying, these Muslim guys need to sort of step up their game and be more recognizable as a Muslim. I think that, number one, that's something that we all need to do, whether you're a man or a woman, because we all know certain people that you can be covered from head to toe, but maybe your character is not like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you, but at the same time, I feel like we can't place that on just the Muslim men. Like it's something that, as a collective, the Muslim Ummah needs to work on. Also, Muslim men, Allah did not command this sort of full covering on them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying they should be more recognizable by their character. And sure, we should all be more recognizable by our character. But at the same time, even then, you meet some non-Muslim people that have incredible character.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it would still be a little bit hard to distinguish
of course,
say, like, oh,
yeah.
this is a Muslim because he behaves this way. Of course, that's the goal. Like, we all want to be people who, when people meet us, they're like, wow, like, it seems like their Islam makes them that way. But at the same time, again, I think that Muslim men, the commands are different, so they're not necessarily going to be recognizable, even if they have this impeccable character. But, I think that that's something that we should all be working on as a collective. As an ummah, we all should be working on, getting to a point where when people meet us, they think very positive things because of our Islam. Mm-hmm. Or we're able to respond. Or, if they ask you, like, why are you like this? You say, well, because my religion teaches me to be like this. We want to sort of spread this positive connotation about Islam, especially in this day and age when all these things are just going on. We were just at the khutbah for Jummah today, and the Imam mentioned a hadith. He said that the Prophet ﷺ told his companions that the best of you are the people who, when other people see them, they're reminded of Allah, essentially. And I think that that's the goal that we are supposed to be working towards. So whether you're like recognizable as a Muslim or not, whether that's because of your character or because of your clothing, because you don't always have one with the other.
Yeah.
It could be that a Muslim woman has impeccable, great character, but she's not covered. Or she is covered and her character is not very nice at all. Or a Muslim man who has this great character, or a non-Muslim man who has this great character. So I think that outward distinction, yes, it's something that we've been given as women the responsibility to uphold, to be outwardly, visibly Muslim. But I would say for a guy, the most important thing is to not hide your Islam. So whether or not someone can pick you out as a Muslim because of the way you look, I think is a little bit insignificant. But I think it's really important that you act Muslim in terms of your character, yes, but also when you're speaking to other people, they know that you're Muslim. You're not trying to like hide your identity or like Americanize your name or, things like that, where you're trying to sort of push down that identity. I think that's where you have a problem. Because again, there is nothing outwardly that sort of signifies that. Like a Muslim woman who's wearing the hijab can try to like de-Islamify herself all she wants, but she's still going to have some sort of outward connection to the faith. Whereas for a guy, I just think, again, for all of us, it's just really important that we don't hide our faith and we don't try to like put that on the back burner or try to act like we're not Muslim when we're in the presence of other people, especially if you can blend in. So that's what I would say.
And I think that it's important that this is not an individual commandment. This is a collective commandment for all Muslims. We should all be Muslim when we're out and about, and be Muslim in the way that Allah tells us in the Quran and in the Sunnah. We should reflect that in our character, so that the society, when they see us, they say that's the qualities of a Muslim, and that's how they recognize us, right? Because they've seen the collective of Muslims act in such an amazing way that when they see that guy, acting, doing whatever, being so generous, or or just have this demeanor about him, they go up to him and ask, "Are you Muslim?" You know, all of my Muslim neighbors are so kind and generous, just like you. That's kind of the route that I was taking it from.
Yes, and I agree with that. And I think also something that we all have to really, really work on is being a positive representation of Islam. Again, especially in this day and age when a lot of people are scared of us. A lot of people, they don't know anything about Islam except for what's portrayed on the news and the media, which is false. You know, it's a false narrative. So I think I try to keep this in mind when I interact with other people, especially non-Muslims. I always try to be like extra nice, just so that way they know that it's like, I'm not someone that you have to fear, or I'm just like you guys, or I'm a human being just like you, and you don't have to be scared of me. And actually, I want to show you what Islam is all about. So I think that that's something that we should all work on as well.
Yeah, and it would frustrate me so much sometimes when I'm at school and I have these Muslim people with me, right? And they're just not acting in a way that reflects Islam.
Yes.
And it frustrates me because this could be you could be the first Muslim person that these people at school have ever met in their lives.
Yes.
And so, like you said, we have to make a huge effort to just be our best outwardly when we're with people, not because our intention is to please the people and not Allah, but because it's da'wah. It's a form of worship to be our best when we're out and about, because we want to bring people to Islam. We want them to know, like you said, that we're not to be feared.
Right. I think that it's really important to remember that Islam is not something that you can like turn on and turn off, right? It's not like when I'm around certain people, I'll turn it off, and then when I go to the masjid, I'll turn it back on. It's not a switch. You're supposed to be Muslim all the time. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people, a lot of non-Muslims, they see it that way. They're like, okay, well, I know certain Muslims that are like more religious, and certain Muslims that like don't seem to really care. We don't want to give that impression off either. That like, oh, some Muslims do this, but Muslims, but some Muslims don't. So it's not that serious. We want to show that we're different in our religiosity. That actually Islam is something that's always on. This is something that drives who we are and everything that we sort of do. So we should take steps towards that as well.
All right. So just while we're on this topic, I just had a little sub question for you. So what are some qualities that young Muslim men can begin working on right now in order not only to improve themselves, but just because you're a lady, I wanted to ask this, to become a better, potential spouse? Because you always see this, marriage advice everywhere in the Muslim, Muslims for some reason are obsessed with marriage advice.
Yes.
So I want to take it from a more practical perspective, right? Being a Muslim man right now, right? I'm 17. We're young. What can we do right now? Right? I'm not asking about to look for a girl. No, I'm not asking about that. I'm saying, what can we do right now to improve ourselves in order to become a better prospect for marriage?
So many things. So many things.
Practical. Make it practical. Realistic.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to give one piece of advice that I think can apply everywhere.
Okay.
Because I'm trying not to extend this video to be super, super long. Take things more seriously. That's what I would say. Take your relationship with Allah more seriously. Take your relationship with your family more seriously, with your friends, with yourself. Take your relationship with your schoolwork more seriously. Just realize that you can't just be dilly-dallying. There's no time for that. There's no time for that.
And as Muslim men, we're not supposed to be doing that.
Exactly.
We have a responsibility as Muslim men.
And I think that this is the thing, and actually me and my friend were talking about this the other day. Me and Asil were talking about this, how boys are left to sort of be immature for longer. Like, everyone always says girls mature faster than boys, and they do chemically, yes, we do. But at the same time, society lets boys be boys for longer, and they make girls grow up really, really fast. So I would say, as a guy, recognize, and this is something I saw a lot going from high school to college, boys especially. But I mean, honestly, I saw this with a lot of people, but I also saw this a lot with like my male classmates and people that I knew. They realized too late that they should have done better.
Yeah.
And so what I mean is, like, right now, start to take everything more seriously. You're growing up. And unfortunately, and this is something that we talk about all the time with like my friends, with our parents, as a woman who is not like currently trying to get married, but you know, someone who's in that sort of age range, you look around you and you don't see anyone that you can marry.
That is so sad.
And it's so sad because you're like, and this is not just me. This is, I mean, the girls I know, they're incredible people, and we can all work to improve. But we're like here, and the guys our age are like here. And you're like, I'm not coming down here to marry you. And you shouldn't. Yeah. And even as a guy, you shouldn't do that for another girl. And again, I know this is not just specific to marriage, but take everything more seriously, because you don't have time to just be like dilly-dallying and just hanging out. And that's what guys do a lot of the time. Honestly, that's what everyone has started doing. I'm not going to just blame it on the men. But since you asked about the guys, take everything more seriously. Like you see a lot of girls who take a lot of things more seriously. You know, we're doing better in our education. We're becoming more educated than guys are. You know, we're more serious about so many different things. Just take your life more seriously. First and foremost, take your relationship with Allah more seriously, because with that comes all the other aspects of improvement. Seriously. And I think that every guy can learn, or should, I think this is like something that every guy should do, is start learning about what it means to be a man in Islam.
For sure. Because
again, social media, society, movies, all these things portray men like manly men. What are manly men? They have these big muscles and they can fight.
Yeah.
And it's like, Islamically, that is not what a man is.
Yeah.
That is not what a man is, right? So start learning about what it means to be a Muslim man, as the Prophet ﷺ portrayed, as the companions portrayed, right? As all the prophets portrayed, really. You can look at all of the prophets. How did they approach their relationship with Allah? How did they approach their relationship with the people around them? How did they treat their wives? What kind of characteristics did they have? Were they always hard? They weren't. That's another thing that society tells you. Men can't cry. The Prophet ﷺ used to cry all the time. He had a soft heart. So I think that it's really important to take everything more seriously. Please start feeling like you have a responsibility. Like, be ambitious about something, please. More than one thing would be great. Like, seriously. But start doing that, and then start learning about what does it mean to be a Muslim man. Not what I've seen in my family. What the Prophet, peace be upon him, said. What Allah says in the Quran as well. Right? That should be the examples. And for girls as well, we should start learning what it means to be a woman in Islam. How am I supposed to be as a mother, as a wife, right? Since we're kind of speaking about marriage, but in general, even as an individual, as a woman, what is Allah expecting of me? As a man, what is Allah expecting of me? So start taking things more seriously. Again, that's a very general piece of knowledge that I think applies in every aspect of your life. Just start being more serious. It's not all fun and games. Grow up. Grow up, seriously. And then start learning about the characteristics of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the way that he portrayed being a man, because he was the best of men. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Like, he was the best of men. So you should be looking into his shama'il, his characteristics, you know, the things that he did because he was the man of his household, because he was a leader. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So that would be...
No, for sure. I mean, I 100% agree. Like, as a man, I see everything that you're talking about, right? Men are really slacking off these days, unfortunately. But we can come back. Like, don't be all depressed, like, oh, I'm a man and I'm a failure. No, that's not how it is, right? Like she said, when you look into the shama'il of the Prophet Muhammad, right, and you look into how the Sahaba behaved, like, you will find that, you know, being a man is such a beautiful thing, and it's not just being a hard, like, rock. That's not what being a man is, right? Like, you'll find that being a man in Islam will give you so much fulfillment and so much, like, izzah, like we were saying. Really, it's about that. And
I can't relate.
but
I'm like nodding. No, I'm just joking.
No, because that's what men are looking for, right? I mean, come on, we're all men. We want to feel powerful, and we want to feel like, you know, we have this, you know, like, standing in the world, and this is how we achieve it. By acting like the way that the Quran and the Sunnah teach us to behave. And so I just wanted to throw something in here. So, you know, in the Quran, Allah says, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, right? Men have a degree above women, right? And I'm not going to get into what that means and all that stuff, but and it refers to financially, usually, right? They have a degree in providing, right? And so I just wanted to throw something in here. How are us men going to be qawwamun? How are we going to be responsible for women and provide for them if we're 10 miles behind them? It's just not possible, right? That's just what I wanted to,
It's not possible, and also I think that's something that I see a lot, again, being the age that I am. There's a lot of guys that, they're trying, and that's great. Keep trying. We're all trying at the end of the day. That's all that this life is about. We're just trying to get better. But you see a lot of guys who are going after girls who are so much better than them. And again, I'm not here to say who's better than who. Like, Allah determines that, right? Allah tells us that in the Quran. But seriously, as a man, don't expect to go for a woman and then be upset that she doesn't want you. I don't mean that in like a bad way, but like, don't be upset that she says no when you're nowhere near where she is, So I think it's really important to also be realistic. Get there.
Yeah.
Get there.
Put the work in,
and
right? Don't despair. Put the work in.
If you don't get that particular girl, like, Allah's going to give you someone that's better for you, but you have to be willing to work for that. Don't go after these girls that are going to have to come down so much just to sort of relate to you. My mom always tells me, like, you don't want to be teaching a man. Yeah. You don't want to be a man's teacher. And yes, as a couple, you're going to be growing together. Obviously, that's the beauty of it. But at the same time, you don't want to be teaching a man, like, you need to go to Jama'ah on Friday. You need to go to the masjid and pray. You need to blah, blah, blah. Girls, like, we're not here to marry potential. You want to see the qualities that you want in a spouse already in them. Again, we all have room to work, to work forward and to get better. But at the same time, potential is not what we're looking for. And inshallah, we all have potential to grow, obviously. But what I mean is, like, you shouldn't be like, well, inshallah, he'll start praying. Inshallah, he'll start memorizing Quran. Yeah. No, you want to see, like, the fundamentals already there. So, yeah. Yeah,
and it's disappointing because, at least as a man, I feel like we are not living up to the responsibility of providing these women with a good husband. Like, you know what I mean? This is a collective responsibility. They shouldn't be having to go to other, having to go marry some other random guy that might not even be Muslim because they can't find any good Muslim guys. That's a responsibility that we have. Again, like, in Islam, there's two obligations. There's the personal obligation, right? Praying your 5 daily prayers and all that other stuff. And then there's the collective, right? So, like, going to a funeral, for example. As a collective of Muslims in the community, we're responsible to go to the funeral. At least a portion of the community is responsible. So as Muslim men, we are responsible, again, to carry ourselves in an Islamic manner when we go out, to be a good husband or a potential husband, right? So, we could talk so much about just that. And I'm very passionate about it as a man. And I would love to see, some more improvement in this area for us men, inshallah.
Me too.
But so yeah, I just
see it too.
Finally, just to kind of quickly end off, kind of related to what we were just talking about. But so, like, what advice would you give to just young Muslims in general who they're trying to get closer to their deen? They're trying to, build a relationship with Allah. Maybe they didn't see it in their family and they're listening and they want, like, right now they have decided they want to do something about it. They've taken, and that's the first step, to take the initiative, right? So what advice would you give them, just really quickly?
I was going to say, the fact that you want that is a really good sign, and that's a really, really great first step. I would say, I don't know what I would say, actually.
There's a lot to be said.
there's a lot to be said, but I would say just try. I think that this is where so many people go wrong, is they say they want things and then they don't work for them. And they sort of psych themselves out of it. They're like, I can never be like that. I can never get to that point. So they don't try because they convince themselves that they can't. And actually, me and Asita were just talking about this on an episode that we never uploaded. We recorded the whole thing, never uploaded it. But we were talking about the fact that just 3 years ago, for example, I'm 19. 3 years ago, I was 16. That was when I first started to really connect with my deen, I feel like, on a more personal level. Me at 14, 15, never would have expected to be where I am right now. Honestly, truly, like, I could never have imagined that this is what Allah had in store for me. And I'm so grateful that He picked me for that. But just because you can't see it happening right now doesn't mean that it can't happen. So try. Allah wants you to come to Him. And Allah says that if you just take one little step towards Him, He'll come to you running. So make that first step. Take that first step and then keep taking steps closer. I want to say that you're always going to have more that you could do. There's always going to be room for improvement. And this is something I was just talking to someone about earlier. We often have these milestones in Islam where like when we get there, like we're done. You're never done, right? Even if you memorize the whole Quran, even if you finally got to a point where you're praying all 5 of your prayers, there's always more that can be done. So don't let that discourage you, but also let that be sort of a reality check for you. It's not that right now the road seems so long. The road is long until you die. The road is long until you are done with this life. The point is not to get to the end of the road. The point is to die on the road. The point is to die trying. So take that step and then keep taking little steps until you feel like you can keep going at a faster pace. You take that small step and Allah comes to you right away. It starts with an intention like we were talking about earlier, and then you have to put in the effort, right? And the effort, the more you put in, the more it grows, right? Like for example, you start off memorizing the Quran, maybe you're memorizing 1 ayah, but then you keep doing that and you're like, I can memorize 3 ayahs now. I can memorize a half a page. Eventually I can memorize an entire page. It's the same way. You have to build yourself up to it, but just put in the effort. I promise you, if you want something bad enough and if you make dua for it, it's yours. Seriously. And that would be another point. Ask Allah for help. Just like I was talking about earlier. I think so many people, like, they miss this step for some reason. Or they make dua as a last resort. They're like, I tried everything else and now I'm going to make dua. No, start with the dua. Ask Allah to make it easy for you. Ask Allah to help you and keep your eyes peeled. What I mean by that is a lot of the time when we ask Allah for help, we ask Allah, we're like, Ya Allah, please help me with this particular thing. We're expecting the answer to come in a very certain way that we don't even realize that Allah answered our prayer in a different way. Sometimes the answer to your prayer is going to come in the form of a person that you meet, right? Or sometimes it's going to be a lecture that pops up on your phone or a post that you see on social media, right? I had a friend who told me that before she met me and before I introduced her to sort of the rest of my friend group, she was like, I would make so much dua for Muslim friends. I didn't have any Muslim friends. And then I met you, and then through you, I met so many other people. So sometimes the answer to your prayer is another person that you meet. So keep your eyes peeled. Set the intention, number 1. Make the dua, put in the effort, and keep your eyes open because Allah is sending you signs every single day. And don't ever get discouraged. I think we get discouraged a lot because we're like, I'm not where I want to be yet. Guess what? Even when you get there, there's still going to be more room to improve. So don't let that stop you from starting. Start. Again, you take one step, Allah's going to come running to you. If you're sincere, Allah's going to make that path easy. Allah guides the people who want the guidance. So if you feel like that guidance is not coming to you, reevaluate yourself. How bad do I actually want it? And then put in the effort. Put in the effort. I think that's the biggest thing. And then, ask people, what can I do to get better at this particular thing? What can I do to improve in this particular regard? Get to know people. Go to the masjid. We talk about this all the time. You'll get to meet incredible people at the masjid. And then make sure that you kind of remove the things from your life that are stopping you from getting closer to Allah. So if you have a really bad friend group that's not bringing you closer to Allah, start to distance yourself from them. But I think really the biggest thing is just to take that step to really put in the effort to try and to recognize that you can, right? That just because you can't see it happening right now doesn't mean that it won't happen. It can. If you work towards that, it can. And you'll end up being in a place that you never would have expected for yourself. But the most important thing is to ask Allah for help. And I hope that was practical advice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it reminds me of something that Allah says in the Quran. He says, وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Right? He says, whoever puts their trust in Allah, He will bless them in ways that they can't even comprehend.
Yes.
I mean, that's beautiful. It's really a beautiful part of the Quran, and it really shows you that we know nothing. We don't know what's best for us. Allah knows what's best for us. And like you said, if we keep our eyes peeled and we make dua and we put our trust in Allah, we take that initiative, then you will have blessing come to you from places that you couldn't even imagine that they come.
And I think also, like, you know, you were talking about this thing about this ayah in the Quran where Allah tells us that He's going to give us from places that we can't imagine. A lot of us see that in our lives. We see that happening right now. We see, you know, certain things that, again, like you never would have thought, and they came to fruition for you. So get to know Allah. Again, we can always improve in this regard. Like I started off by saying, I have so much more room to improve in this regard. Don't just, and I've actually been saying this a lot in our recent podcast episodes, but don't get to know Allah in terms of the 99 Names song. Like, I can sing the song, but does that mean that I know who Allah is? No, start to realize, like, start to see Allah manifested in your life. What I mean by that is, like, and again, I've been giving this example a lot, but you're like, Allah is Ar-Razzaq. Okay, you know Allah is Ar-Razzaq, and then you see Allah is Ar-Razzaq. Or you know Allah is Al-Fattah, He's the one that opens the doors, and then you see in your life Allah is Al-Fattah. So start to sort of relate everything back to Allah and see the way that He manifests in your life, because I promise you He does. Again, you just have to have you have to keep your eyes peeled for that and actually have that sort of insight. Yeah. And always the Quran is a great place to start as well. So start connecting with the Quran in any capacity, even if you're reading translation. Just try. The Quran is really it's like the center of our faith, in my opinion. It's a very, very vital aspect that people just tend to throw it on the shelf, read it once a year in Ramadan, if that. We have to take the Quran more seriously. And I think that if you do that, everything else kind of falls into place as a result of that.
All right, so I have just one bonus question.
Oh God, I thought we were done.
Yeah, to finish us off, one bonus question.
Okay.
And this question is: do you have any questions for me?
Oh.
Last question. I'm gonna make this a tradition of this podcast. When I have a guest on, I'm gonna ask them, "Do you have a question for me?" And we'll see. If you don't, it's fine. But just want to throw it in there.
I don't know if I do, but now I have to think of one because you gave me the opportunity to think of one.
Yeah.
Do I have any questions? Okay, this is a silly question.
Okay.
But how was I as the first guest on your podcast?
Amazing. I mean, honestly, like I wanted you to be the first guest because I know that you have such an like all-encompassing. Like I knew you could answer all these questions.
Thank you.
But she didn't see these questions. By the way, I
was scared.
She did not see these questions.
Guys, this is the first time I've been on YouTube. Like I'm used to having a mic and recording, but I'm not used to having a video at all. So
you did amazing. Good job.
I'm like, it was really nerve-wracking for me.
No, yeah, it was very good.
But then I can talk, as you guys can.
She can talk for sure. She can talk forever. No, yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for being my first guest. And I just realized I didn't even mention the name of this podcast. So the name of this podcast is Finding Firdous. And the inspiration for this is that I want to bring on guests like Sumaya who can really bring us closer to Allah and bring us closer to Jannah and really show us the way to Jannah, inshallah. So the name of this podcast is Finding Firdous. And so thank you guys so much for listening to this 1.5 hour podcast. If you made it to the end, then really congratulations, because I think like 90% of the population today would not be able to do that. So you're in the top 10%.
Yes, and go give our podcast a listen.
Yeah, I'm gonna link that down below in the
all of our episodes are super long because Asid and I also can talk for a very long time. But inshallah, it's not just like blabbering.
No, for sure.
And, it came together in some way.
As you guys can see, Sumaya has a ton of wisdom, and so I will link her podcast in the description below, so you guys can go ahead and give it a listen. If you're a man or a woman, doesn't matter. Even though it is her and her friend, it's great. I listen to it all the time, and I learn stuff all the time from Sumaya just by being around her, mashallah. So again, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Sumaya, and I'll see you guys next time, inshallah.
إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا